So my question really relates to um, the topic. It was like the exact same. Um, it's like when I feel peace in the body, um, and I feel it oftentimes in my heart and in my belly at the same time. Um, I get this sense like in my head, there's like this manic energy that's like, oh, you're trying to avoid your emotions. And what the piece feels like is it like the emotions that were previously traumatic or resistance, those very emotions like turn to peace. It's like acceptance of them. Um, and I'm like, okay, so do I trust that peace or try to figure out how to face the traumas, face whatever's like dormant in the personality. Um, I'm like really on the fence because then it feels like I really don't know. And like there's just like it's hard to speak to it now because I don't really feel it present in the body at this time, but um yeah, it just feels like okay, follow the flow or am I avoiding things?
Mm.
Um and there'll be like a manic need to like understand. I'll be like, well, remember that talk from Lisa when she talked about
Mm.
dropping into the body, feeling the emotions. Um It's like there's a worry like underneath it that the personality structure is like deep down like really bad or
Mm.
narcissistic um or is ignoring things or I'm like not facing
Mm.
those traumas with a life situation or whatever, which I
Mm.
could see because I do act out things with people that are quite childish. Like I could see that, a lot of the ways that I interact with people, I was like, it's the little child within like um I'll be having a normal conversation and I'm like it's a little child within like pleading for love. Like
Mm.
I'm like this isn't, I'll be like I'm not having
Yeah.
conversations with people. I'm trying to like get things from people or
Yeah.
in order to fulfill that.
Yeah.
Um and I'm like, okay, so follow that flow or and stay with the peace and just trust or, also work with these dynamics, which seems very like heady and complicated in that moment. It's
Mm.
like, oh, I have to figure that out. That's
Mm. Yeah, so there's two different things that are happening, I would say. There is there is the seeking energy, which makes all your dynamics more so. And the seeking energy is the belief that you will find love in the other person. And then there's
yeah,
your natural dynamics. And those are less intense and they're more in flow. And they will be dependent on your karma. And those dynamics will be to want love from other people. We do as humans. We want to be part of the group. We want to have something that we can offer to the group. We want to fit in. We want to be successful. We want to love others. We want to have peace and harmony and intimacy. And this is part of being human. It's just like with Khaleesi, my dog. Like part of being her dogness is that she wants to chase and kill rabbits. Um, she is interested by things that squeak because that's obviously like an animal dying. That sounds really awful, but she's a predator. Like she's interested in digging things because this is like hunting for animals. She's interested in playing with other dogs because they enact, like fighting, dominance. And they play games against each other. They've got social hierarchy. They want to be part of the group. They go towards the group. They want to be social. They want to play. They want to get on. They want to please. All these things. And it's the same as humans, except that we're not exactly like dogs. We've got different dynamics going on. And there is nothing wrong with that. And your responses will be to the world will be dependent on the way that you were parented, particularly the first 0 to 5 or 6 years. And then after that, it will be like put into motion more and more throughout your life. So the conditions that happen throughout your life. And then also you'll be affected by your genetics as well. That was before birth. So you could say your genetics are like past lives. And there is nothing wrong with these dynamics. So I would say, is it okay if I'd say that you're most probably your first 5 years of life were maybe a little difficult?
Yeah, that's probably true.
Like
I can't really remember,
you
but
can't
yeah.
really remember, but if you look, like from what we've talked about in the past, I don't want to expose you too much on the internet, but from what we've talked about in the past, like there was maybe like a little bit of chaos, and maybe you didn't get the attention that you needed in those first 5
Yeah.
years. So
Yeah.
if that happens, then we develop. Everybody's developing survival techniques, but if you've had less stability in those first 5 or 6 years, then you develop more exaggerated and more like unconventional survival techniques
Right.
to get attention, to do all these different things. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you a worse person than the other. It's just karma, which is absolutely impersonal. Some people will have had more stable parents, which could reflect back like love, reflect back their emotions, like help mirror what they want or don't want, like all these different things which help a child create a stable sense of self, which is ironically
Right.
what we have to do, is we have to create
Yeah.
a stable sense of self. And people often, when they get into non-duality, they're like, I've got to kill that sense of self. That's not true. What happens is you detach from that sense of self. Like you
Right.
have to have a sense of self in order to interact with this society. Otherwise, like if you don't, your life will be chaotic. Just like if you haven't, as a child, developed a stable sense of self, your life will be more chaotic. You'll blow things up. You'll blow things up. I mean, as in like you'll self-destruct. You'll be very reactive to people.
So is it that you create a stable sense of self so you can kill it after, or like you just
No, I
create the
mean
stable sense of
some
self?
people say that or not. It doesn't like that's just the way it is. But it's like your life is going to be more difficult if you haven't got a more stable sense of self. Because, so for example, to say if your mum taught you that if you say what you want, you will be punished. So if you say what you want,
Right.
they will punish you, which often happens because the parent wants to manipulate the child into doing what they want. It's actually an important process for the child to understand what it wants and explore what it wants. But often the
Right.
parents like play these games and kind of like manipulate or make the child feel bad, or like ignore it, just plain out ignore it. The child wants something, and it doesn't mean that you
Right.
have to give the child always what it wants, but you have to help the child navigate that and understand what it wants. So it's
Right.
like, so for
That didn't
example, like,
happen for
yeah.
sure.
So for example, if the child comes up to the mum and says, I want a cookie now, like then the mother, like a great thing to do is to explore that with the child. So it's like, oh, I understand that you're hungry now and that you would like a cookie. No, I'm not hungry. I just want a cookie now. And so then the mother helps explore that. Okay, so I understand that you're not hungry. So it's, but you would like a cookie because it tastes good. And then the child's like, yeah, I want a cookie because it tastes good. And then the mummy's like, yeah, I understand. Like I want cookies because they taste good. But if we eat too many cookies, then we won't want our dinner later, which is more healthy for us. So you're kind of like, I mean, maybe that's not the best of example, but you're kind of like helping the child to understand that. It doesn't mean you give in and give the child a cookie. Maybe sometimes you do, but it's just helping the child understand what it wants.
Right.
rather than like,
Yeah, I like that.
how dare you want a cookie? I've given you so much and now you want a cookie? You're being so spoiled. Which is often what will happen to a child, is it'll be like
Right.
guilted into what it wants. Whereas your job, even when the kid's acting out like that in its twos and being like really demanding in what it wants, your job as the parent is just to reflect it back so the child understands what it wants and understands how to negotiate in the best way for what it wants. So another thing the mum could explain is like, or say to the child is like, you know, like at another time. See, earlier when you came up to me, you were shouting at me about wanting the cookie. But when I come to you and say, I would like to play with your toy, how would you like me to say that? And it's just exploring. It's not like
Right.
saying it's right or wrong. It's just exploring, reflecting back to the kid these appropriate behaviors, but also reflecting back to the kid that it's important to know what you want, because this is what creates the sense of self, ironically.
Right.
So then people get into non-duality and they're all like, they've had all this like shame around what they want and shame around their personality structure. So they get into it and they're like, yeah, the trick is to eradicate what we want and then we'll be happy. And that's kind of playing
Mm.
into that childhood dynamic, because your mum, maybe that's what your mum did, is like try to eradicate what you want. And that's not actually what non-duality is saying. Non-duality is trying to point out that there is a freedom beyond your wants. So when you're identified with the personality structure, what the person believes is that that my freedom comes in getting what I want. So my freedom comes in getting the cookie and getting the love and getting the attention. Your freedom actually is that which is looking. But a healthy human has to navigate what it wants in the world in like a friendly and open manner. So it's not alienating people. It's not like doing really destructive things. But at the same time,
Right.
it's able to navigate that. If you can't navigate that, then you'll attract people that fill you up with their wants.
Right.
So like,
Yeah.
or you'll be really extreme about it, and then you'll not really know what you want, but you'll be like really following what everyone else says. So just like money, sex, or something, and then you'll become the bully and fill someone
Right.
else with your wants, but they're not really your wants.
Right. And I could see that. Like I was worried about that, like the personality structure and how it's functioning in the world and everything. And like I'm seeing some of my dynamics with people and everything, and I'm like, that's actually, oh, the way I treated that person or the way I listened to that person, that's actually, like I was doing it for this or that reason. And sometimes it'll be, I'll be like, that was really, it just seems messed up. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, it's
yeah,
confusing.
yeah.
But
That is confusing, and that's the personality structure. So there's two different things that's happening. So that's the personality structure acting out, and that's because of your parenting in childhood. And that's the way your
right,
brain's grown. And then there is this other freedom that is watching that. And these are two different subjects, but what happens is the person is getting confused in that. So
yeah,
the personality structure you need to fix with somebody that deals with personality structures. So, and it's not like an
right,
easy thing. Like I've got personality issues, we all do. And like some of us have it more severe and others have it less severe, but we all have personality issues.
yeah. I'm
Um,
working with you might know her, Suzanne.
but yeah, nice.
I'm working with Suzanne on my personality structure thing,
Yeah,
and then I'm attending Codependence Anonymous
oh, nice.
to work on it as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So it's
yeah,
just seeing that. So that's, I mean, like you're doing everything. It's just that your guilt comes up around it,
yeah,
which is most probably, you know, what your mom or your primary caregiver taught you, is that you're not doing
yeah,
enough, that you're getting it wrong. But it's just seeing that that
yeah,
is part of the thought structures. That's absolutely not true. That's not who you are. That's the way your brain fires. And the freedom is in the watching of that. The freedom is in that which it appears in, is this moment. And those thought structures, the guilt, the shame, is going to create seeking, which will then elongate time and make you feel like you're a separate human that exists in time, which isn't true.
yeah. And so when I feel like sort of that peace in the body, like in the heart and in the belly. I'm like, okay, can I give myself totally to this peace?
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Sure.
and it seems like total okayness, and it seems like in that like emotions are being processed, but it's like peaceful, you know, there's no,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
not like,
totally.
it's not, you know, if there's no resistance, it seems like it's peace.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, you know, this is too easy. Do I need to work on the personality structure? Do I need to look at
So
this or
when
that? You
you
know, the
when you
mind
feel
comes in.
yeah, so when you feel at peace, just go with that, and then when you feel less at peace, then work on the personality structure. But even in this, like, so if you're saying that you've got more codependence tendencies,
Yeah,
like
avoidant, codependent,
avoidant codependent, I don't
ironically.
know so
Yeah,
much all the details of this,
yeah,
but something that you will be wanting to do is always looking for how to do it from the external. Or one thing that will happen, I don't know actually about avoidant codependent, I don't know so much about it, but I can imagine like something that will happen is that you're looking for you someone else to give you the answer because there's a deep belief that you don't
yeah,
know or that you'll be wrong. And that's absolutely
right,
not true. I get the
right,
sense that you do know, that you're very wise, that you're very intelligent.
right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And very
Yeah.
perceptive of your dynamics.
Yeah.
This is another part that doesn't believe it because that's the way you were parented.
Right, right, right. Yeah. Okay. So to working on the personality structure, like it seems kind of vague to me sometimes. I'm like, okay, so I hold the emotion, um, and then look at the stories, but the stories, like, it's not a mental thing, right? Like, it's not like you're like, okay, I have to figure out these stories, because sometimes I do that. It seems like if I hold the emotion, like the stories just kind of come up.
Mm,
If I inquire into it, they kind of
mm,
just like come up.
yeah.
Um, and
Mm,
then is bringing it to consciousness, is that like enough? Because I know I can bring it into like the positive or, you know,
yeah.
um,
All of those things are great. Like bringing it into consciousness, getting to know it, moving it into the positive, understanding the attachments to the past. But I would also just become really conscious of this dynamic or this thought that's coming up, like I don't know how to do it.
right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know the best way. Like you do know the best way.
But it's not like a mental knowing, right? That's because, um, maybe I'm just resisting, but like, because when I hear they're two separate things, like working on the personality structure and dropping into consciousness, it's, I guess my question is like, it seemed to me, or maybe I want it to be like one thing, where it's like when I drop into consciousness, it seems like things just come up and process themselves, and the human dynamics like figure themselves out.
Mm,
But I don't know if that's true or not.
mm,
And I can see in saying that like I'm not trusting myself, and then it's a mental, turn it into
yeah.
a mental thing at the same time. Yeah.
Mm. I would say it's like it's fear coming up on in you that you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
the end, like I don't know the best way for you. I don't
Right.
know the best way for anyone. There's just things that are being suggested. Like in a way, it's illusionary best way. I think there's definitely better techniques to help settle down the person.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that's important for, well, at least right now. So, um, because even maybe it's, yeah, it is, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it is fear of like thinking that I don't know.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't know the best way. I can't like trust myself.
Yeah,
that's also like the manic or like OCD kind of thinking
yeah,
when I
totally.
try to figure things out. Yeah, yeah.
And it's also like the
Right.
same as
Cool.
you can imagine, like a child constantly being told that it doesn't know what to do, that it's stupid or that it shouldn't do that.
Right. Yeah.
But so you can see why those thought patterns would grow, and they simply are thought patterns.
Mhm.
And it's like so you can watch the videos that I put out, and I talk often about like exploring the person. And I also find that a lot of non-duality teachers speak in the same way, but you can also go to a therapist that specializes in like attachment issues or personality issues, codependency. And if you're in Holland, then you can put it through the government, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm in the US right now, and I think
Yeah.
Suzanne, she also did Codependence Anonymous. So
Oh,
she's
she's
kind of my
amazing.
s- she yeah, she's kind of my sponsor right
Oh,
now, so
nice. Yeah.
guess
So, but you can watch
a
stuff on the
therapist.
internet, like you can read
Yeah.
books. But in the end, like I think that there's a place in you that does know what you want and does know what to do. Like the more that you meditate and the more that you get into that and uncover it, like there's that
Right.
child that did know what it wants and does know how to do things. It's great
Yeah.
having Suzanne. It's great like having all these other things to stop you like wobbling over the edge because of the fear and the insecurity. But I think there's a deeper place in the person, and it does know what it wants and what it doesn't want. It's just uncovering that.
Right. Yeah, that's a beautiful reflection to hear from you, actually. So thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, nice.
really appreciate it. Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Lisa.
With pleasure, Brian.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you
lots of
so
love.
much.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
You too. Bye.